Alright, so I just came back from a workout and I really want to make a video about this whole entire Israel and Hamas conflict because I'm pretty sure that a lot of people is also thinking how this would actually be affecting the market, the economy, and things of that nature. I'm just going to give it to you guys straight. Um, Honestly speaking, I don't think it's going to be affecting that much, okay? People might think that oil prices is going to be affected, bond prices is going to be affected, U.S. economy might go up because they tend to go up after any sort of kind of war case scenario. Just look at the latest example that we did have with the whole Russia-Ukraine situation. After Russia invaded Ukraine in February of 2022, from there on out, we got just up all the way. The market was basically excited and just thriving on this sort of war case scenario. So I think a lot of people might think that, oh no, could that be the same this time and that sort of deal. So I feel that it's quite interesting for me to actually go through this whole entire thing with you guys so that you would actually understand the reason this actually started and who are the main players in this whole entire ordeal. So, of course, if you are not following me on Instagram, follow me down below because I actually uploaded like an eight different slides of my opinion on this whole entire thing. So I basically just explained the whole entire Israel, Hamas, Gaza, the Palestine, the Saudi Arabia, US, Russia, China, everything in that 8 to 9 slides. I left it in my story. I'm not sure if you are able to see it anymore after this, but just follow me on Instagram. I upload there daily, basically. Okay, but anyway, let's get back into this where we talk about this whole entire Palestine situation. Okay, of course, we do have a lot of new information coming in. So I will just keep those at the end simply because all these are so-called a recurring updates that is going to be continuously propping up throughout the day, and I will leave them all at the end. But right now, let's just talk about how did this entire quote-unquote war happen. The southern borders of Israel, they actually got invaded early Saturday, and the reason why it happened, a lot of people are actually thinking that it could be due to the fact that it is the 50-year anniversary for the Yom Kippur, which is also the 1973 October War, which is also known as the Fourth Arab and Israeli War. So, of course, back in 1973, when the Six-Day War happened, Israel won, but they actually had a lot of disadvantages, despite the fact that they think that they have a pretty good level of intelligence. It wasn't enough, and on top of that, they were actually fighting on the back leg. But ultimately, Israel managed to win the Six-Day War. Thankfully, so I guess, in some sense. So because of that, right now I think that a lot of people are thinking that this is kind of like a revenge plot of some sort due to the embarrassment that they actually had 50 years ago. But that is not the reason why this whole entire war actually started. Okay, because if you actually look at how this actually started, there's a lot of different nations that actually play into this very integral part of this geopolitical warfare. We have to talk about United States, we have to talk about Saudi Arabia, and of course we have to talk about China as well. Okay, so let's start with Saudi Arabia simply because Saudi Arabia is this huge country in the Middle East, basically the big brother of the Middle East, okay? Everyone is going to be listening to Saudi no matter what because they are the richest, they have the most resources, they have the most influence, the most influential country in the Middle East. And at the same time, let's be honest, they control the bloody OPEC, so I think it kind of makes sense for them to be the top dog, okay? The OPEC that is affecting the United States, I'm pretty sure that is definitely worthy of something for us to actually talk about. Okay, and of course, for the Saudi Arabia, for them, they are mainly against the Iranians, the Iran. Okay, so of course, I guess the hate is relatively mutual, which is why Iran actually threatened with a nuclear bomb against the Saudi Arabia, and the Saudis were basically finding a form of a nuclear deterrence. And of course, what better deterrence is there by having your own frigging nuclear bomb, right? Of course. So then this kind of get pushed over to the United States, and then we have to talk a little bit more about United States now, okay? For context, Biden quite recently, in some case, I guess last month, unlocked a $6 billion worth of asset that actually belong to Iran for a prisoner swap deal. Okay, so what US is basically going to be doing is that they allow this $6 billion of asset to be unfrozen and give the Iran's back the 5 Iranian citizens that they have held captive in the United States. In return, the 5 United States civilian held captive in Iran is going to be returned back to the United States. So basically a prisoner swap deal. Okay. Funnily enough, the Congress was not actually informed on this decision because the Biden administration actually issued the waiver for the international banks to do the transfer from South Korea all the way to Qatar in accordance with the written guidance from the United States government. So of course, they actually included a different clause for this in the guidance, basically saying that, okay, you know, this fund is supposed to further humanitarian measures, aka you can only buy this, you know, you can use this money for food supply, clean water, build schools, you know, medical aid for the frontliners, things of that nature. Okay, but money is money. Okay, it's a money game, it's a numbers game, and when we're talking about a numbers game, it's easy for you to smudge it all out. Okay, because if I already have a set budget for all these different measures, now I suddenly have a $6 billion unlocked over to me. I can basically just say, hold up, let me just swap this out. Since this money can only be used for all these different measures, let me just use this money to go to those measures and use whatever money that I had before the unfrozen $6 billion asset came to me and use those money for whatever the hell I want. And of course, that was kind of what happened. Okay, so the thing is that because of this whole entire situation, of course, Saudi Arabia went to US and said that, like, you know, you're the issue for this because you unlock the money, that sort of thing. So help us by giving us a nuclear weapon as well. So in terms of how US actually sees it, okay, US is like, okay, but honestly, our conditions are quite simple. Okay, we only want 2 different things, which is the first one is you do not touch Israel with whatever weaponries that you have. Okay, so that means that if you are going to use, if I were to give you this weapon, do not touch Israel. I don't know why, but you know, I don't know what Biden is thinking about, but hey man, I don't really care at this point. And the second thing is, of course, the most important one of them all, which is OPEC negotiation needs to ensure that Saudi Arabia is going to give us cheap oil forever. Okay, not give us, give US, but okay, it's not a pun. Okay, it's not a pun. Give US cheap oil forever. Okay, but anyway, because of that, it's kind of like a pretty good deal in terms of for Saudi, because if they were to give the United States cheap oil forever, simply that doesn't really affect them that much in terms of profit. Yeah, a little bit, but at the same time, they do get nuclear deterrence against Iran, and because of that, they don't have to be that worried. So of course, due to this whole entire thing, what the United States actually wanted to do was to create this sort of proposal where you get a triangle of nations to kind of help each other. Okay, so what United States wanted to do was to kind of help to create peace between the Saudi Arabia and Israel, to help normalize Israel back into the Arab countries all over again, because Israel has always been outcasted as this very complicated country, to say the least. So this way, basically, all the different other Arab countries would also follow suit. Of course, other than Palestine and Iran, because they most likely will not care about this. Okay, so this is kind of hoping to create this sort of a win-win-win situation. So US kind of comes out on top because they get cheap oil forever. Israel get to be normalized amongst the Arab countries. So basically becoming a more notable nation of some sort because of the peace treaty with the Saudi Arabia. And Saudi Arabia get their own nuclear deterrence. Kind of like a win-win-win of some sort. But of course, the only losers in this whole entire situation is the people who are not going to be following Saudi Arabia in the whole entire peace treaty, which is your Iranians and your Palestinians. Gosh, this is hard. But okay, but yeah, basically, so what Iran wants to actually do is they actually want to get together with Saudi Arabia and say that, like, you know what, how about this? Let's get together where it's going to be our own triangle, and instead of the United States, we get China into the deal. Okay, so get our own triangle of things. So it's going to be Iran, Saudi Arabia, and China. Okay, the only reason they want to do so is to ensure that US do not get on top, because right now US is not really being controlled by anyone else. Okay, so because of this whole entire situation, Saudi Arabia actually decided, nah, it's fine, because the thing is that we want our nuclear deterrence. We think that that is more important. They actually went ahead with the US proposal, and on the day of signing was the day that the Hamas invaded Israel. Yeah. And when that actually happened, when Hamas invaded Israel through the southern borders, that was actually the big thing that happened on Saturday. Because, of course, the only people who get to really win any sort of, or get any sort of a better side from this whole entire situation is actually just the Iranians themselves. Okay, even for Hamas themselves, they don't really get to do much from this whole entire situation. Do understand, for contextual purposes, Hamas is a very poor group. They do not, because in Gaza Strip, basically, they do not have money, they do not have resources. They are like this refugee camp of some sort. It's an open air prison, as a lot of people is actually saying online as well. So for them to really for you to think that Hamas is this sudden, like, really informative, high intelligence, with a lot of intelligence across the globe, a lot of money to actually go through with all these different missions, well-funded operations and such, it's not exactly the case. So if that's the case, that means that Hamas is not actually well-funded. So the only way for them to come up with such a well-funded and well-operated operation is most likely getting funding from someone else. And Hamas has always been known to be funded by the Irans. So if you get funded by the Irans, it's kind of obvious that, a lot of people are saying that, yeah, that means Iran is the one that's going to be funding Hamas. Iran is the one that's instigating the attack on to Israel. Because, like I said before, Iran is the only one that actually stands to win something out of this whole entire situation. So, of course, but the issue right now is that because of what has already happened, according to some of the news that we actually had, Iran actually came out to reject claims that they had anything to do with this whole entire situation. So a little bit more iffy, since Iran comes out to say, hey, it's not on us. This is completely down to Palestine. They are the issue. They are the one that actually pushed that narrative. They are the one that wanted to get into Israel. So of course, right now that you kind of have to talk about it, because Israel kind of wants their get back of some sort. They want to have their revenge, but they're gonna be in somewhat of a dilemma. Okay, two different ways that Israel can do it. They're either gonna go and take their revenge, or they don't. If they go and take their revenge, effectively Saudi Arabia might not like it. Okay, because if that were to happen, then Saudi Arabia is just going to be like, why are you attacking the Palestine like that, right? But if they do not do anything about it, it means that Israel is going to be portrayed in a very weak light. So Saudi Arabia would not really want to be partnering with a weak force in such a volatile region of Middle East. If you are in such a volatile region that is very prone to war attacks, you do not want to have a weak ally, especially after a very recent attack, and you choose not to do anything about it. It just shows a lot of weakness. So from a position of weakness, it makes sense for Saudi Arabia, even if Israel to say, hey, we're not going to do anything because we treasure this deal a lot more. That's not going to help it much, because Saudi is basically going to say that, like, yeah, I don't think we want to really be in a peace treaty with you, because chances are in the very near future, anyone were to attack Israel again, we need to come up with more resources to help defend you, or we need to come up with a lot more resources in terms of money, in terms of our actual men on the ground, things of that nature, over to Israel to help you guys. And I think that that's the whole reason why they actually probably do not want to do anything about it. But of course, that all this doesn't really matter anymore, simply because Israel started attacking Gaza yesterday. So this is This is already very long, but it's okay. Let's continue with this whole entire thing. Okay, but anyway, the mainstream media in the US is basically pushing the narrative saying that, like, let's save Israel, we stand with Israel. But let's be honest here, it's very obvious the reason why US is doing so is because they want to stand together with Israel in order for them to get the cheap oil forever. In order for them to have a leverage against Saudi Arabia, for them to actually go through with the OPEC negotiations. So of course, it kind of makes sense for them to push that narrative. So currently, the thing is that it's really, on the other hand, they think that the best way forward is really for them to really just go and fight Gaza, which of course that's what they did, which is why Benjamin Netanyahu, which is the Prime Minister of Israel, basically went through with it. They went to cut off their electricity, their food supply, water supply, even fuel, energy of any sort, away from Gaza Strip. So you have to understand. So Gaza, to begin with, they have always been getting all these different resources from Israel, from neighboring countries, and now they are getting cut off from Israel as it is. So Gaza is really not a very rich nation in terms of money and resources to begin with. Do keep this in mind. Okay, but the issue now with what Israel is going to be going through with is that they are worried about the Lebanon's attack, which is the Hezbollah. Hezbollah currently, according to the news that we actually received earlier today, I think a few hours ago, we actually did see Hezbollah attacking Israel. However, this is also this according to Bloomberg. Hezbollah says it struck 2 targets in Israel at 10:46 p.m., which is earlier this morning for us. For me, the Iranian-backed Hezbollah in Lebanon said it launched guided missiles and mortar shells into Israel, striking 2 targets after 3 of its members were killed in an Israeli attack earlier Monday. Israel said there were no injury in the Hezbollah attack, to which it retaliated with artillery fire. So of course, they are talking about the armed infiltrators that actually came in from the northern borders late Monday. And because of whatever that happened back then, Hezbollah thought that, we have to retaliate, and then they actually shot a few guided missiles over. Nothing so crazy just yet, simply because we understand that Hezbollah is sitting on hundreds of thousands of precision rockets, guided missiles, everything. And they are ready to fight Israel at any point of time. They can fight them for days, for weeks. No problem. And the only reason why Hezbollah has all this different thing is because they are fully funded and operated by Iran. They are only used as a preemptive measure against Israeli, because Israel tend to always be the first one to actually do any sort of an attack, and Hezbollah is basically there to use as a preemptive measure. So of course, because of this whole situation, if Israel were to actually attack into Gaza like what they're actually doing right now, Hezbollah actually have 2 different ways of doing so. Same thing is going to be a whole dilemma for them as well. Okay, the first thing is that if they were to actually fully protect Gaza, or basically just go against Israel to just end Israel for good, they can actually deploy everything that they have and destroy Israel right now. But of course, if they were to do so, there's going to be multiple consequences. The first one is definitely going to be, if they were to do so, the moment all the rockets, all the missiles is actually out of the pocket, all of them is going to be headed for Israel. True, you might be able to try to get Israel down pretty low, but the thing is that you are unable to get rid of Israel as a whole. And the thing is that there goes your leverage. So there's no more leverage play for Iran from there on out. And of course, the second thing is even bigger. When that actually happened, it means Iran is stepping into this whole entire situation, and the US is not going to stay still. And if the US is not going to stay still, then you're going to see a proper World War III. So yeah. So that's why it's kind of hard for them to actually go through with the whole entire thing, because if the US want to step into this whole entire situation, US can basically come in and say, okay, if that's the case, then we are going to wage war against Iran, because you guys are going against your word. You guys said that you guys are not part of the attacks in the southern borders. We told you to stay away, and instead, right now, you guys are using Hezbollah to attack Israel when we're trying to help Israel. So you're either with us or you're against us. And clearly right now you're against us. And because of that, US is gonna send troops over to the whole entire Lebanon and Israel side, and then they're gonna fight. So yeah, that's just how this whole entire thing is like. Which is why. Okay, so that's basically what we actually have in terms of whatever is that's happening until right now. Let's talk about the different updates that we actually had. Right now, things that US is trying to go through different intelligence to check if there's any evidence to point that Iran was actually directly involved with the attacks against Israel at the southern borders on Saturday. Right now, the thing is that they cannot really see any of a specific evidence. However, they do know that Iran has supported Hamas for a very, very long period of time, and it kind of makes sense for them to do so. However, right now, in terms of specific evidence, they really don't have anything. Hence, they cannot really point their fingers at Iran. But let's be honest, if it is blue, call it blue. I can't say anything more. But yeah, on top of that, there's a lot of different people being abducted as well. Americans, Argentines, okay, and like a lot of different people are being killed, murdered, abducted, and things of that nature. I think it's definitely not really a good time in that current situation for them. Israel currently is attacking Gaza from the air and sea. And yeah, a lot of nations are coming out to say that they actually stand with Israel in this situation. Of course, a lot of people are also against that narrative and saying that they are with the Palestinians because they think that Palestinians are actually different from Hamas. They are two different groups, which they are effectively. You got the Hamas, you got the Palestine authorities, you got just basic normal Palestinians. There's so many different layers into this whole entire situation. But what's the saddest part of this all? That we are probably not going to be talking about them after 2 weeks later, because that is just how volatile this whole entire war is in such a region such as Middle East. There are so many wars happening in the past century to the point where it doesn't really matter having this additional war or not. It will only truly matter to the market. I do not want to say this because it sounds really cold, but it will not really matter to any of us until one of the big players step in and fight for them. So be it US stepping in, or China stepping in, or Russia stepping in, without any of these big players coming into the battlefield, nothing is really going to be happening. Okay, the market is going to go as it is. Oil prices, yeah, you might see a 3 to 5, maybe 7% increase. So what? That's about it. And chances are oil prices are going to come back down again. Okay, just look at what happened with Russia-Ukraine. That was considered a high-profile war for our time. And energy prices actually went up so high. WTI went all the way to $150 a barrel, and then went back down all the way to $60 a barrel. It will normalize again. It's not that big of an issue. Okay, so I feel that market is not going to be so worried about this whole entire situation. I just thought that it's kind of interesting, and I really wanted to read up more about it. So I wanted to make this video, so I have to really properly research all this different material for this video as well. But again, thank you so much if you're watching until this far. I really appreciate you guys, and I do want to just leave this here, and just in case you guys forgot about it, which is that I will be changing my uploading schedule, be it once a week or once every 2 weeks, because I intend to do more research content. I intend to put more editing into my videos, whereas right now I'm just lock and load. I'm just recording whatever I am and just spilling out whatever opinions and knowledge that I do have at the camera at the moment. But I do want to do a little bit more editing, a little bit more changing of transition, adding a little bit more research, more value to you guys. And I need a lot more time to do so, a lot more time to prepare for such videos. But anyway, that's all I have for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace out. Bye-bye.